The third federal executive meeting of the year, and it starts with the swearing in of the new commissioners of the National Population Commission. President Bola Tinubu is presiding over the ceremony as the commissioners step forward in batches for the exercise. After the ceremony, the council meeting moves into a closed-door session. A recent spate of abductions in the northern part of the country features during the meeting.
We are seeing some kind of movement by the more the security agencies are also hitting these targets, the targets of criminals, the more they are pushed to also getting some soft targets. But government is not taking any excuses. The president has directed that security agencies must, as a matter of urgency, ensure that these children and all those who have been kidnapped are brought back in safety, and government is not paying anybody any dime, and the government is optimistic that these children and other people that are abducted will be brought back to their families in safety.
The Minister of Agriculture gave an update on the federal government's distribution of grains across the country.
We're distributing to state capitals in the first instance now. As you all are aware, the risks involved in vandalization of foodstuff in transit. So we're working assiduously with the Office of the National Security Advisor and the DSS and the police. And as I can assure you, we have started distributing, especially in the Northwest, with northwestern states. We're distributing out of 7 points.
Council also approved the setting up of a $2 billion fund for a 120-kilometer fiber optic cable across the country.
The president is giving the go-ahead for us to source funds for that. So we are in the process of setting up a $2 billion fund. I said it costs less than $1 billion. But the reason why we're setting up the $2 billion fund is to use the balance to drive down the cost of connectivity in the country. We want to ensure that all schools are connected, all hospitals in the country that they are connected, and also all government facilities as well.
The Minister of Works also addressed concerns that his push for companies to build concrete roads could be responsible for the rising cost of cement.
The policy has not even taken off very well, because you should ask yourself how many roads today are being done on concrete. But the truth remains that with the cost of bitumen now, contractors are begging that their projects should be reviewed on concrete.
State House correspondents were also informed that the president is not stopping or suspending the student loan scheme, but that the scheme is being revamped and a new date will be announced for its launch. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Well, quite a number of issues coming out from that particular conversation. It's something that we will be delving into very, very soon. The conversations around the presidency saying that they're not going to be paying ransom. I think that that's something that has been highlighted already. Federal government always saying that they're not going to pay ransom. But then the question is, do they have the capacity to be able to rescue them without the payment of ransom? I mean, government always says we don't negotiate with terrorists. Isn't that what they say?
Well, the question there too is that, look, in the first place, that those who believe that ransom in one way or the other had been paid previously at some point, they don't know the frequency. They can't exactly pinpoint it. But with this commentary, of course, people will, come up with different perspectives as to what might have been going on. But lots of people will be concerned in that, yes, it might be a good stance, but what is that? Are we? One will imagine that the authorities would have done all of the SWOT analysis or whatever analysis for the backlash, repercussions, for want of words, consequences, whatever it is. So if anyone happens to fall in that fight, the bandits themselves will not know, well, if that's not going to be the case, if that had been our mainstay, they will be looking to do things to force government hands. So security,
there are children involved here. Children.
And it's really dicey how they intend to approach that. So it's a strategy on the part of the government to have gone public with that narrative. So we don't know the reasons or why they have done that, because you could imagine that they would have consulted with security agencies to make that statement. So I guess it's something that in the days ahead, many will, well, maybe with bated breath, we don't know. But of course, they have to have a lot of hope, hoping for the best. But again, we need massive strategy to ensure that we don't give any inch or room whatsoever to any of these persons to keep doing all of this. So, and in a particular case, this particular one, it will be a test case.
Indeed, especially since government has now said we're not going to pay ransom. But I think our guests are already logging on. We can see them now, and we'll be going into that conversation shortly. But while they're still trying to make sure that they're properly set for us. So let us, I'm just wondering, because, you know, listening in that conversation, I mean, listening to the briefing that it did, there were quite a number of things that came out. There was the issue of cabling. I think, what's that cabling now? Is it a fiber optic cabling? There was that issue which the Minister of Communications briefed on. There's the issue of student loans. I'm sure a lot of students were wondering, because I think, was it today or yesterday, was supposed to be the launch date of the student loans. The federal government has said that they will go back and they will let us know when the new launch date will be, but a number of students are looking at that. And then, of course, there was the issue of non-payment of ransom. The only problem is that when you want to have these conversations with governments, you know, they're usually very hedgy, which is understandable given the fact that we're talking security. They're usually never clear. Is it that before now government had been paying ransom? And I don't know that before now. I mean, I'm talking about maybe like 10 years ago when kidnapping was on rife, not on this scale in the northern parts of the country, but in the southern parts of the country where governors had this problem, governors in the south region, for instance, and were investing somewhat in equipment. What we find was that governors used to tell the people, pay the ransom, but don't worry, we'll get both your people back and we'll get the money back and we'll get the people who have done this, we'll get the kidnappers. And oftentimes they used to deliver. I really wonder what has happened from those days to now, where it would seem that we're just paying ransom and there's been no real results, you know, in the short term of getting these people as quickly as possible. So this new stance of government is interesting. The only thing right now is people will be asking, will we be able to get the children back? All of them who have been taken, because don't forget, these are children, and nobody will be tolerating any collateral damage here. I don't think anybody wants to hear that sort of story, but it'll be whatever strategy it is that they're deploying. I think at the end of the day, what we're all interested in is a return of the children safe and sound. Ayo.
You know, what strikes me the most about this, Chamberlain and Mawkwe, is that April 14 into 15 this year makes it 10 years since Chibok girls. 10 years. And, you know, have we learned any lessons? Did we even sit down to do any reviews? Okay, this is what happened and this is how we want to avert it. Or as Chamberlain said earlier, are there facts that we don't know that is allowing these things to continue? Part of the issues we have raised on this program from time to time on this particular matter is that of consequences. Have there been arrests? Have there been prosecutions? Have there been detentions? Exactly what is going on. People need to know. It speaks to just one thing, and that is the issue of transparency of government at various levels. I also continue to say that these things happen in states. And Markwa, you nailed it. Some governors have done this before. They address this issue, and we don't have such issues at the same scale as they used to happen before. Now those things don't happen at the same scale anymore. How come it's been 10 years since we've been hearing these stories in the North? Is it that it's because it's more lucrative in the North? I don't think so. Come on, guys. We all know the fact that poverty is more rife in the North than anywhere else. So is this the kind of legacy we want to leave for the young ones? Markwa, you nailed it. They are children. We are literally scandalizing their lives, their entire lives. If they live up to 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, they are scandalized from now. How can anyone who goes through this kind of situation ever think about nation building? How can? I don't know. Let me just believe that we have our heads screwed right and we are thinking appropriately about these things, because Nigerians we want to know exactly what is going on. There was that initiative of the Safe School initiative, all because we want to ensure that these things don't happen again. 10 years after, this is where we still are. Questions abound. What exactly is going on? Back to you, Malkwe.
Well, Ayo, big questions that you've raised. I mean, I think that we're going to stay on this matter of security. But while we're looking at security, we also know that poverty alleviation is one of the things that we've been seeing government in, government out battling with. We've seen them, come up with an agency, scrap the agency, raise a whole ministry, suspend the ministers in the ministry, and now people have been asking what exactly is going on with the investigation. How long is it going to take for the investigation to be concluded by the federal government? When is the distribution of palliatives and even all of the social investment programs going on within the ministry? When are they going to commence again? This was a motion which was moved on the floor of the House of Representatives. So we will be delving into that conversation shortly with our guest, who will be with us any moment from now. But it will be interesting to also get your views on it. What do you make of the current situation? There are those who have criticized the current situation to say we cannot run an economy based on palliatives. You cannot just say, oh, you're going to be giving people rice or beans, as the case might, or grains, as the case might be, on a daily basis. You have to, invest in an environment that will help these people be able to work. But then there are questions as to if people are hungry and their immediate need is food, shouldn't government find a way to be able to get them the food that they need in the immediate term?
Well, that's a challenge, because this food doesn't just appear like that. Some of them they're grown, they're planted, they're watered, it seasons, it takes time. And that's why the security component is huge. So when all of those things were going on at the time, we needed no telling that we were going to be faced with a challenge. So again, we'll ask questions of states. So they also need to pull together. What plans are they putting in place to ensure, look, they all have their strengths. So they need to play on their strengths, whatever they think that their strengths are. So those are the kind of challenges. But, excuse me, we might as well just go on and bring in our guests. We've got two of them this morning. Honorable Billy Osawunu joins us. He is the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Poverty Alleviation. He joins us virtually. Good morning, Honorable Billy. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Can you hear us? Honorable Billy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So let's first of all get your perspective on, as a lawmaker, when you hear the executive arm of government say no payment of ransom. I know the House did speak about security, how urgently they wanted some things to be done. So what's your own impression about government deciding, putting out there, no ransom? So security agencies go there and do this job.
Thank you very much. Well, it's more like, I see that more like a blackmail, because anybody that falls for a blackmail, then you should be ready, to pay the ransom for a blackmail forever. So that is why somebody like me will never support a ransom, because the moment you start, you know when to start, but you don't know when to finish. So if it's a formula that is working, and I think those people will not stop at anything, they'll continue to do it. But if they know that it's not negotiable, it's not even something that is acceptable to us as a government, I think they're going to have to devise other means, to actually ask for compensation, which we don't encourage, because this is why we have, our security, agencies. So if we begin to pay ransom, then what is the use for the security agencies? So I strongly believe that as a country, we have a very strong security architecture. We have very smart security operatives. I don't see any reason why we cannot actually take care of insecurity. I just feel it's a matter of taking care, taking good care of our security men and women, taking good care of, if we are doing a joint task force, they should be taken care of. They should be well trained. I know they are well trained, but again, do we really encourage these people to do what they are doing every day? It's not as if they are not doing anything right now. It doesn't look like they are doing anything, but they do a lot. But are we encouraging these people as a government to keep doing what they are doing? That is the area we need to look at. I know with technology, we can do a whole lot. So have we embraced it totally when it comes to tackling insecurity? So those are the areas we need to look at instead of
Yeah, well, we seem to have lost him there, but we'll get that connection back. Honorable, we lost you. We can't hear you at the moment, so we'll just try and get that connection back.
And it just so happens was when I was talking about technology, investing in technology.
Technology happens.
Indeed, I was just about to say, oh, look, we're using technology to have this conversation and just what it can do for us, only for it to just, also show what it cannot do sometimes. But yeah, interesting point the Honorable is making there. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Great. Yes, we can hear you. So you are making the point about that being blackmail and it being something you never support, because when you start, we do not know when it will end. That's the situation, right? So, but do we know what the policy of government has been over the years? Because yes, government has always said we will not negotiate with terrorists. This is something that we will not do with terrorists. But we've also seen situations whereby people have been calling for negotiations, people offering to speak to negotiate. I think it was just yesterday we saw in the papers Sheikh Gumi saying he was willing to speak to the terrorists to see how they could get them back. Big questions really. If government says they're not going to pay, should individuals be allowed to pay at least to get their loved ones back?
Well, the truth is, yes, it's the government policy not to pay ransom, but the truth is, understand individuals. The pressure they even try to put on the government, because these are family members. You can't blame them as well. But again, I can tell you that even some family members would rather want to go pay the ransom, and pretend that it's the government that is actually doing the negotiation on their behalf. And don't forget, there's a difference between negotiating and paying ransom. So there are different types of negotiations. So going there to go negotiate, like you said, with Gumi, does not necessarily mean to go pay ransom. So again, negotiation can mean sit down with these people. What do you really need? And they said this is what they need. But ransom should not be part of it. Again, if they say they need any other thing, you can't be negotiating at the same time while the government is making move to actually recover, those hostages. So again, what we are talking about is that could be strategic. It's different from family members that will really, because of the pressure they are under, especially when some of these people are put on the phone to talk to their family members and they are being beaten at that same time. As a family member, how would you feel? So that is why under that pressure, they quickly run to go do negotiation on the part of paying ransom to these people. But again, as a government, we will never encourage it. It's unacceptable. But again, talking to family members not to do it can be very difficult, but we are going to still find different ways to take care of all these issues rather than go for ransom.
Do you think there has been sufficient communication in this regard? Because sometimes, too, what we also get from governments is governments saying, look, we know where these people are. We know where they're being held. Do you think that there's been sufficient communication of confidence on the part of government to not just the families, but also to the generality of Nigerians, that they really have a handle of this and they are on top of the matter?
Well, the truth is, I would say, yes, the government might be making a lot of effort, but I still don't think there is enough communication. Because while you are talking to the hostage takers, at the same time, you should be talking to the family members who are really worried. And you should let them know, even though this is a security operative, you might not be able to divulge every information, but there are certain information you can actually pass to the family.
Go ahead, Honorable. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
That's an area we are not doing too good, at this moment. So we want to continue to reach out, because this is why we have, different agencies, like our agency on orientation. These are the kind of roles they need to play, communicating with all the parties involved, just to put their mind at rest so they won't be actually desperate about a lot of all these things to go, to the extent of even going behind the back of the government to go pay ransom. I believe if enough information is communicated to this family, they will not do that. Everything is just all a matter of time when these operations are going on. But yes, like you said, we are not doing enough, and I think we can do enough. And in the area of partnership, I think our government should look into getting into partnership, with some of our allies, in the developed society. I lived in the US for a long time. I know their capability, and I know they have reached out some few times to our government in this area of insecurity, how they can help. But I really don't think our government has embraced this enough. So we want to encourage, them for this to be done, because we have seen cases where some Americans have been kidnapped in the past and they were rescued. So if they could do that in the Nigerian soil, why can't we see a reason now to build that partnership with them to help out when it comes to issues like this? So we need to keep encouraging our government to look into that.
Okay, Honorable, yesterday in the House of Representatives, there was a motion raised, and you can correct me if it was not in motion. I know you have different terms for different situations, but there was concern raised around the suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and the stoppage of some of the programs that the ministry had undertaken with regards to social investment. Can you tell us what the genesis of that was and why the House is raising concerns about it?
Oh, well, you see, first of all, we have to, at this point, you must first of all look at, the objective of actually setting up, that the National Social Investment Program. So again, we know this actually was set up, operating under the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, and include other initiatives, such as the Empower, Conditional Cash Transfer, the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program. All these were programs set up to actually bring about alleviating the poverty, of our people. So again, looking at the mood of the country and what our people are going through, I felt it was time for us to move, that motion of urgent public importance on the need to resume the implementation of this National Social Investment Program, because we had to, to alleviate the current increased hardship, faced by Nigerians. So again, when this act was set up, that was exactly what it was supposed to do. So to ensure a more equitable distribution, of resources to vulnerable populations, including children, youth, and women. So this is not what we are seeing now, even though that program was about to start when the issue of the minister came up. I don't think it's enough, to keep the country at a standstill. At some point, Mr. President actually suspended the program for about 6 weeks. But now we feel, with the way things are going in the country, this program, the ban on it should be lifted, which I think the president has done. But they have set up a steering committee, to be, headed by the Minister of Finance, to actually look into this program. But again, that motion actually just emphasized on the need, for this program to actually take off because of what Nigerians are going through. And again, the other aspect I raised was, even though we are doing that, we should not forget that we have 3 arms of government, but they are all equal and separate. But if we are doing this, then they should come back to the parliament to actually review some of those things. And whatever is not done properly should be done properly, because that's why we called it an anomaly, because you just cannot, carry out this just based on executive fear, just like that. So that was the point I was raising yesterday, that even though that we want this to continue, moving this to the Ministry of Finance was not the right thing to do, as far as we are concerned, when you take the act into consideration.
All right, Honorable. Well, we also have with us Mr. Jake Epele, who is the founder, CEO of TAF Africa, who is also joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Mr. Epele. I'm sure you must have been monitoring events over the past 1 week, from the kidnappings in Kuriga, government's response to it, and now also a motion by the House of Representatives, wondering what is going on with investigation happening at the Humanitarian Affairs and the stoppage of some of the social investment programs. I'm wondering, you have always spoken very consistently for vulnerable groups. How has this affected vulnerable groups, this suspension of programs within the humanitarian ministry, and the fact that investigations around the humanitarian minister is taking so long?
Thank you. Good morning, Mark Bay, and good morning, viewers, as well as my co-participant this morning. Yes, it's obvious that the impact of the suspension of the social investment program is impacting on the most vulnerable. But I think the president did the right thing. I was one of those who called for the suspension of the entire program to interrogate and find out where the missing links exist. It has become a national social investment of corruption. And the suspension was the right decision by the president because of his executive functions. However, it's also important to note that I totally disagree the hurriedly call at the moment by the House to reinstate that program without receiving the report of the current investigation panel. I think I agree with Honorable for that process to be quickened, but not the reinstatement of the program in the midst of an investigation. There's a whole lot of rot that has happened within the system that needs to be cleaned. I've taken my time to do some, mind searching on what the way forward should be. But at the moment, there are too many rots within the system. It has to be cleaned. It can be done faster, but it shouldn't be suspended and reinstated. I'm not saying that's what the House of Assembly is saying, but I'm saying, yes, we need to reinstate, but we need to also re-examine the process, clean it up, and when we start all over again, we will do better. Now, there are basically about 5 components of that program. The Empower was a job creation and empowerment initiative. It was aimed at providing young graduates and non-graduates with skills, tools, and livelihood opportunity to enable them to transit from unemployment to employment. The second was the National Homegrown School Feeding Program. Of course, you know, it was riddled with all kinds of corruption and allegation. The third is the conditional cash transfer. This program was targeted at the poorest and the most vulnerable household in Nigeria to provide them with cash transfer to improve their livelihood and help them meet their basic needs. The fourth is Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, what they call GEEP. GEEP program was designed to provide financial support in form of grants, loans, and skills training to small businesses, artisans, and traders in order to boost entrepreneurial economic activities at the grassroots. The last is the trader money, which is a component of GEEP. The trader money provides small loans to petty traders and artisans in Nigeria to help them grow their businesses and improve their livelihood. I mean, this is a very good, laudable program that has these 5 strands of activities. But how well has it been implemented? Absolutely nothing to write home about. You know, rather it has produced homegrown, corrupt individuals who have taken advantage of the entire system, you know, to their own, to the detriment of the society. So there's a need for total overhaul, investigation of those involved. I don't care who is involved, and those people should be properly interrogated. This is a rip-off on the poor and the most vulnerable, and I'm so angry because this. I mean, there's a minimum of 500 billion naira investment every year since 2016, when this project, when this whole program started. We borrowed this leaf from the European Commission that I think they started theirs in 2013, and they have used it, you know, profitably to help the poor of the poorest. Nigeria, we borrowed and we have misused it and made the poor of the poorest much more poorer. You know, what else can I say? I mean, there's a way forward, but we shouldn't rush the process.
You agree with that? I mean, Mr. Epele has spoken extensively on it, listing the programs and, you know, saying just how laudable the ideas behind them were, but he doesn't think that we should rush this investigation process. What are your thoughts on that? Honorable, I think you're muted. You might want to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now, Marquez?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I agree with him. Yes, that is not something to be rushed. But again, what about the Nigerian people? How long are they going to have to wait for investigation when we have started seeing cases where people now go into government warehouses to break into warehouses, where even trailers moving with goods, you know, are now being burgled, and, you know, so these are people's businesses as well. So how long can Nigerian people wait? I believe this program and the investigation can actually run concurrently. So, or simultaneously, let me put it that way. So that is why I think there is a steering committee that have been put in place, which can actually do the job of the board, because we don't have a National Social Investment Program Agency board yet, you know, and I think that was part of the lacuna that was created, where it now looked like a one-man business, where the CEO, you know, could do anything, you know, that she wanted to do. So again, with the steering committee there and the finance minister, who is the coordinating minister for the economy, is there, I think we can still do something. A lot of these things have been put in place. You know, it's just for us to make sure that we are doing what is right for the Nigerian people. If we want to talk about investigation, you don't have a timeline. You know when it's going to start, but you don't know when it's going to end. So I still believe that at this point, the Nigerian people should not always bear the brunt of whatever is happening that is not good in the government. So I still believe there should be a way for these Nigerian people that really need this help to get it now rather than later. So that is all we are saying. So in our own part as a parliament, we just feel while we are doing all that, then they should always come back here for us to, if there's any amendment or review we need to do, it has to be done properly. So that's the other area we talked about. That was when we said, the extant laws, bordering this act or guiding this act does not allow for this agency to be moved to the Ministry of Finance. We can actually advise that the president actually get a minister of state that can oversee this program for now, pending on when the investigation ends. So that was part of the motion I moved yesterday.
Honorable, because right now you are the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Poverty Alleviation. So I imagine that you directly oversee or you have oversight functions over the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. And I also imagine that all your meetings with them will not always be formal, that you will also have some informal conversations trying to, find out what the situation of things are currently and, just what the situation is, I dare say. So I'm wondering, in your conversations with them, what exactly would you say the function of the, or how have they been carrying out their functions in the meantime while this investigation has been going on? Are we saying that all activities at the Ministry of Poverty Alleviation and Humanitarian Affairs has been halted as a result of this investigation that is currently ongoing?
Thank you very much for that question. You are very correct. That's why we are worried. As we speak, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation is almost at a standstill. The permanent secretary might have been asked to, carry on with the day-to-day running of the ministry. But don't forget, there is so much he can do, where his powers will allow him to operate. So basically what is happening there right now is just basically operational. People just go to work and they really cannot, when it comes to policy implementation, the PAMSEC cannot do that. Yes, you are very correct. We have had some informal meetings, and this is the problem we are having. Considering the importance of that ministry to the country at this moment, it's not a ministry we should just leave like that, doing nothing. So that is why we are calling on Mr. President to please, if they can actually assign that ministry to a minister of state for now to oversee that ministry, because we are not only talking about this INSIPA program. There are so many other things in the ministry that are at a standstill as we speak. So that's why we are very worried.
Mr. Jekepele, I'm sure you've heard Honorable, and I also know that, while you want something to be done and you want it to be done properly in terms of the investigation that's been happening there within the ministry and the fact that, it's yet to really deliver on its mandate or even show that it's got the capacity to do so. There are questions as to what should be happening in the meantime. We all know, what is happening with inflation. We know what's happening with the economy. We've seen people agitated, as Honorable highlighted. We've seen people breaking into warehouses, waylaying trucks on the way, as the case might be. Trucks belonging to owners of other businesses. And there are big questions as to, how soon government's own palliatives will be getting to the people. Do you think that government needs to communicate more with regards to what exactly is happening within the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs?
Thank you, Mark. Honorable, I do agree with you on some point, but on many I don't. Let me first of all correct an impression. I don't think the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs has been moved to Ministry of Finance, or their responsibility given to Ministry of Finance. There was a committee that the government set up to investigate what happened in the Ministry of Humanitarian headed by the Minister of Finance. I don't also see any reason why everything should be on hold and nothing is happening. If they know what they are doing, there are several other strands of their responsibility that they can carry out. But however, let me give you some very reasonable points of what has happened so far. And I think also, Honorable, it's important that you engage the community of persons with disability. Your committee should invite us for a meeting so that we can give you hands-on information. We are the one that were at the receiving end. And to be honest with you, even when this program was going on, we were not receiving anything. There were very, very minute impact of this particular program, not generally the ministry. Since 2016, when this whole thing started, their own information says only 4 million people have benefited from it. Is it giving us the expected benefit? So let me give you some statistics. Number one, the greatest problem with this program is mismanagement of funds, where there's been report of mismanagement of misappropriation of funds intended for NISP program, which include allegation of funds being siphoned and diverted for personal gain rather than reaching the intended beneficiaries. I'll give you the second, the lack of transparency. The people involved are not transparent, no accountability, roles are not defined.
Mr. Pele, I'm so sorry I have to interrupt you. I imagine, now that you have already also, told Honorable that he needs to invite you, invite your members of your group as well to, have a meeting with him. I imagine that, some of these issues will be raised there, but we are totally out of time right now, and I'm afraid that we have to close the program not close the program, close this segment, because business is coming up and we have to talk business shortly. But gentlemen, I have to thank you both for coming on the program this morning. I know that this is a conversation that's going to be ongoing as long as we have not heard the end of this current investigation, which the government is carrying out right now. But I have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Honorable Sawuru is the Deputy Chairman of the House Committee on Poverty Alleviation, and Mr. Jake Epele is the founder and CEO of TAF Africa. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much, Moikpe.
Thank you, Moikpe. Thank you. Channel, you must keep the conversation going. You are the trusted voice, and we can rely on the news that you dish out. Thank you for having us this morning.
Thank you so much for coming on, gentlemen. Well, Business Morning is going to be up just after this commercial break. Please stay with us.